Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to your August meeting of your Louisville Town Council. Welcome to those who are here in the audience tonight. Glad you're here with us. Welcome to those folks who are watching us at home on TV6, and welcome to those folks who are watching us on Facebook. Nice that you could join us to watch the workings of your town council. We'll start this evening with a roll call of our members. Customarily, our council members introduce themselves.
Good evening, I'm Jane Welch.
Good evening, David Smitherman.
Hi, Jean Marie Foster.
I'm Mike Horn.
Ken Sadler.
Happy Thursday, I'm Melissa Hunt.
And I'm Fred Franklin.
Very good. And folks, if we sound a little muffled to you tonight, it's because we sound a little muffled to you tonight. So it's not, don't adjust your TV. It's nothing with your volume. If you please will join us, Bo Hauf is going to lead us in our invocation, and then Jean Marie Foster will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you're able.
And let's pray. God our Father, we come to you recognizing tonight that you are God. You made all things, and for that we come to you in thanksgiving. And even though we may not do things always the way that you want us to, we know that you still care for us. And so we come to you giving thanks tonight for this town. We give thanks for the citizens of the town, for the staff that works so hard to make this town work, and for the elected body. We ask you to be with them during the course of this meeting, to give them courage and wisdom to do the things that need to be done tonight. Then we ask you to take us all home in safety this evening. We ask all these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Also with us tonight, our town manager, Hank Perkins, our town attorney, Bo Hauf. Bo, thank you very much for that invocation. Our town planner, Stacy Talbert. Our town public works director, Ryan Moser. Our town finance director, Pam Orell. Our town clerk, Ms. Joyce Walker. And nice in the audience to see two members of our committees. Susan Fry, who is a chairman of our Parks and Recreation and Cultural Affairs Committee, and Dan Fry, who is on our, help me, Dan. You don't even know it either, right?
He's just on the community center.
And Dan, who's participated with us on our Community Center Planning Board. And also Ryan Walker, welcome. You're a new member of our Parks and Rec Board. Thanks for being here. And in the back of the room is our trusted deputy, Sergeant PJ. Thank you. Good to see you guys. Council members, we do have a couple of changes on our agenda for this evening. Ms. Walker, would you like to go first?
For some odd reason, I did not bring over the appointment order for Gretchen Roberts to go to the Environmental Conservation and Sustainability Committee, so I'd like to add that appointment order under number 5, please.
Very good. Council members, any other changes, staff, additions? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
Motion. Second.
Ms. Hunt makes a motion, Ms. Foster makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that is unanimous. Hank, will you walk us through the consent agenda, please?
Yes, this evening's consent agenda, gosh, it's loaded. We've got Resolution 2021-057, acceptance and approval of monthly financials for the 12 months ending June 30, 2021. The approval of Town Council meeting minutes from June 10th, 2021. Approval of Town Council briefing minutes from July 1st, 2021. The approval of Town Council meeting minutes from July 8th, 2021. The approval of Town Council closed session minutes from July 8th, 2021. Approval of Town Council special meeting minutes from July 15th, 2021. Approval of Town Council special meeting minutes from July 21st, 2021. And finally, Resolution 2021-056, accepting the resignation of Bill Lawrence from the Louisville Public Safety Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Ms. Orell, do we have any surprises in our finance report?
Now, do keep in mind, this is the preliminary report for the entire 12 months, and revenues and expenditures are still coming in, so I'm still making adjustments.
But we're going to have good surprises, right?
Sorry.
I don't think there'll be any surprises.
You know exactly what's going to happen. Okay, very good. Ladies and gentlemen, the consent agenda are items that we routinely bring before council. Their approval of minutes and financial reports and appointments, or not appointments, but resignations from committees. Any council member can pull any item off the agenda should they wish to discuss it individually. If not, we take them as a group. Council members, what's your pleasure?
Move for approval?
Second. Ms. Welch makes the motion. Dr. Sadler makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that's unanimous. All righty. PJ, we'll give you the stage.
Uh-oh. There we go.
Good afternoon. It's always a pleasure to see your smiling faces. Ms. Joyce, will you pull up the stat sheet?
Is that,
Yep, that's it.
that's it?
All right, you can see our total stats. Calls for service were 733 calls for service. Among those, 377 security checks, 44 traffic violations, 15 alarms, and still hanging around a 6 minutes response time for that's priority calls. Compared to last year, 665 and 387 versus 25, we were still amongst the shutdown at this time last year, and 23 alarms, and you can see the response time, 6 minutes. On the calls for service detail, you may not have that in front of you, but there was a lot of process services, and that's just subpoenas and criminal summons or any outstanding processes that were actually served within the town. Something that we really can't control is just how they cycle around. Some of those are actually figured in for calls for service. If there's no questions about that, I'll move on to this month's safety tip that we've put together.
For our tip of the week, any
Our
questions?
tip of the week, that's right. Ms. Walker, if you'll pull up the picture of the school buses. So, Ms. Tolbert had a good idea a few days ago at Town Hall. As you know, we're getting ready to enter back into a school year. Buses are going to be hot and heavy on the roads in the neighborhoods. So what I'd like to do is present this picture and some bus safety tips, and I'm going to send this to Ms. Taylor to try to send it out to in the news bulletin brochure this month. So, as you can see, if you look right up under the picture where it says school bus stop law, that's a road that shows like Louisville, Vienna. That's just a 2-lane road with a divided highway by a yellow line. So all traffic must stop when it comes to a school bus. I don't know if you can blow that up any or not, but we'll try to have this printed out for you guys. And if you'll look right up under that, that's an example of Shallowford Road where you may see buses out here where you have a 2-lane highway where it's got a center turn lane right through it. Again, all traffic in each direction must stop, okay? The very bottom one, we really don't have that. That's just a 4-lane divided highway. Every lane would actually stop during that. But if you go back up to the top right, that's an example of Louisville Clemens Road where you have where you have 4 lanes, but it has a median going down through the middle of it. So it's important to remember that not everybody has to stop, only the traffic flowing with the bus, okay? So those riders should be exiting off of that. And then if you look right directly under that, that is a 4-lane with a center turn lane. It's no median, it just has that center turn lane. If you think about South Stratford Road over by the Blue Dolphin going out through Clemens, that would be an example of that. And again, that's only the traffic that's flowing with the bus that is actually required to stop. So nobody on the opposite side has to do that. So a couple reminders for parents and teachers. Always try to establish some kind of eye contact with your bus driver. Let them know. Folks, just because it's the law that you can't pass a school bus, we have it happen every day, okay? Unfortunately, there's going to be kids that lose their life for somebody passing a stopped school bus. So as much as we want to educate drivers on when to stop, we want to educate parents and students to be cautious. Stay off the highway. Stay off into the yard at least 10 foot. Try to wear some kind of bright clothing. Even if you have to put a reflector or anything on your book bag just to kind of to draw those attentions to the driver. If you drop something, if a student drops something, let's make sure that the bus driver knows, travel in a group. And kids, when you're getting off the bus, make sure that you're looking before you actually cross that highway. Bus drivers have a big responsibility. It is a job that I'm not envy, but I do appreciate them, and we're struggling to get bus drivers. So it should not be taken in lightly. So, like I said, we're going to put this in the newsletter, and if you need more information, you can look at the ncbussafety.org, and they have a lot of good resources that you can actually pull up. So, if there's no questions, I'll turn it back over to you folks.
Yes, sir. PJ, I'd just like to make a comment that I appreciate this timeliness of this message tonight. Sometime back toward late last spring when, there hadn't been school buses on the road for months, if you will.
Yes, sir.
And they were trying to start back up. I was coming home one evening down Grapevine Road, there about Sedgwick, and a bus stopped to let somebody off at Sedgwick. And as I come around that curve approaching Sedgwick, going toward my house, it took me a few extra seconds, if you will, moments, to realize there's a school bus with a stop arm out.
Right.
And what to do.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the timeliness of this because, over the course of the last year, we haven't seen as much school bus traffic, and maybe have forgotten what we ought to do in certain situations. So it's very good.
We get complacent, so just a friendly reminder, watch, slow down. If it takes you an extra 5 or 6 minutes, what does that really matter when it comes to if somebody loses a life? So, as a driver, you certainly don't want to live with that if you hurt or kill a child. And each time you do that, it's dangerous. It could be deadly consequences.
Thank you, Sergeant Stringer. Appreciate the information.
Thank you.
Ms. Orrell, you have our next item.
Before I present the award tonight, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the program that we're talking about. The Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada established the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting program in 1945 to encourage and assist state and local governments to go beyond the minimum reporting requirements of generally accepted accounting principles and to prepare comprehensive annual financial reports that evidence the spirit of transparency and full disclosure, and then to recognize the individual governments that succeed in achieving that goal. The goal of the program is not to assess the financial health of the participating governments, but rather to ensure that the users of their financial statements have the information they need to do so themselves. Reports submitted to the program are reviewed by selected members of the professional staff of the Government Finance Officers Association and the Special Review Committee, which comprises individuals with expertise in public sector financial reporting and includes financial statement preparers, independent auditors, academics, and other finance professionals. We did enter our comprehensive annual financial report into the program for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020, and I'm pleased to report that we have been awarded the certificate. And if I may, I'm going to read a portion of the letter that we did receive from the program. The Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada has awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting to the town of Louisville for its comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020. The report has been judged by an impartial panel to meet the high standards of the program, which includes demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure to clearly communicate its financial story and motivate potential users and user groups to read the report. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management. Are there any questions?
And now the presentation.
That was it.
That was it. Oh, we don't touch anything. We don't hold anything. We don't do anything.
Well, this is the CAFR.
Okay, very
Oh,
good.
Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, I'm sorry. I will say this is the 16th year that we have received it.
Yeah.
That's nice.
And I do have one question. You mentioned earlier when we were doing the consent agenda, we still have some stuff coming in and it's going out from last year. We haven't had the audit complete and Monty address us yet, have we? Or did
No,
that
we're
happen on
only
Zoom?
a year after year end, a month into our new year.
That's why I was thinking that,
Yeah.
okay, we haven't seen the auditors yet.
No, it takes about 3 months for
Okay,
all the
all right.
expenses and revenues to come in, and so
All right.
the audit will probably be performed, I'll say, late September, early October,
Right, and this was for the previous year, 19,
previous
20,
year,
right?
yes. It takes the Government Finance Officers Association 6 to 7 months to judge all the reports that come in from all across the country, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Pam?
Yeah, there's not a question, well, I guess it is a question. Just to remind me, though, one of the benefits of doing this, even though we're not doing it, is it would help with a bond rating, is that right?
Yes, if you ever did want to apply for a bond rating with one of the rating agencies, which is Standard & Poor's, Fitch, or Moody's, you would have to have a comprehensive annual financial report to go along with your application.
Excellent.
Pam, I wondered what percentage of towns, communities, governmental groups receive this award?
You know, I don't know how many actually go beyond the minimum requirements and prepare a comprehensive annual financial report. It's usually reserved for the larger cities. I know Winston-Salem, Kernersville, and Clemens. We all prepare a comprehensive annual financial report in Forsyth County, but it normally is reserved for the larger cities. But I don't have any numbers on that.
Very good. Pam, once again, great job.
Thank you.
What this reflects, ladies and gentlemen, is that you can sleep well at night knowing that nobody's pilfering the town coffers. Pam stays really on top of that, but this is quite a recognition for our community that we receive, appropriate, and track all of your tax dollars to the highest levels and standards of those people who keep up with that kind of stuff, and I guess that's accreditors and auditors and those types of things. Congratulations, Pam.
Thank you.
16 years in a row. Thank you. Ms. Foster.
Yes. So Ms. Walker is pulling up the material, the presentation. I will just say a couple of things orientation-wise. So council members, staff, you all have seen this presentation a few months ago. So we are just updating what's transpired. So I'll hit the highlights, but since we are in a regular meeting, I'll try to keep in mind others who might be watching to keep it oriented for folks outside of this realm. Thank you, Joyce. So I'll just say next when you're ready. So this is just a project status report for tonight. I think we had last one in July.
And hold on a second, because, oh, there it is. They keep
Okay.
changing it.
All right, and again, so you can hit next slide. This was just a reference again of how important the boards and committees are to the town's success and resident input. So as a reminder, there were 4 objectives that the work group put together. The work group consists of staff, which is the town manager, Hank Perkins, Stacy Talbert, who's town planner, Jeannie Taylor, who's our communications specialist, and Mrs. Joyce Walker, our town clerk, and myself. So once this project started back in 2020, prior to the COVID, there were 4 components. We wanted to assess what the board and committee members' experiences were with regard to wide open, how are we doing, basically, was the question. We also asked the staff, how are we doing as it relates to board and committee interaction? What can we do better? What are we doing well? What are the best practices out there? And ultimately, the outcome of all of this is to make some recommendations to council through policies, procedures, governance, et cetera. Next slide, please. So hitting each one of these 4, again, these are just updates. Number 1, since last we met, you might recall that it was agreed that we would review the survey information tailored to the individual board and committees. So that meant in the month of July and August, I'm waving to folks that I've seen earlier, I and or others on the work group met with the individual boards and committees throughout the month of July and August. So every board or committee that we have, with the exception of student leadership, I attended and asked some follow-up questions from the survey. And they were consistent in terms of how are we doing with regard to communication, appreciation, support, charter, and basic training and onboarding and resource allocation. So what happened with that was they've provided all kinds of feedback. The work group has not met since that has been completed. We just had the last meeting last week. So that's been attended to. The survey, or the exit survey, is in development by Ms. Taylor, and the plan is to send that out to members who have left to find out their rationale. So the work group is going to be determining how best that happens and over what period of time we'll be looking at that. So that's a quick update on where we are on that goal. Board and committee member experience. Next, please. This is, in general, what I heard. Basically, folks want timely and specific communication to and from council through their staff liaison. They would like council to consider their own expertise as members of boards and committees. Each of our board and committees have individual subject matter expertise in some cases. So they've asked to be considered when the requests are being sent to council. They want better and more orientation, onboarding, training, resources, more consistency and efficiency with regard to clarity of messaging, timely follow-up. They're really very, very interested in how they can work and leverage their relationships with other boards and committees. On multiple occasions, people were saying, I think we're doing a lot of work consistent across some of these boards and committees. It would be nice and helpful to know how we can leverage that with one another. And lastly, some opportunities to actually pitch or advocate their positions to council directly. Wouldn't have to happen all the time, but at particular times or with particular projects, there was an interest in that happening. Yep. Second project goal was assess staff experience. So I've had one meeting with staff, and this is more of a focus group kind of setting. And I asked the same questions of staff. What is it that you need as it relates to boards and committees? What's going well? What can happen differently? So in general, next slide, please. Thank you. So the staff wants, similarly, some role clarity. They want to ensure that the board and committee members understand their role, their scope. They want to have them understand what the communication protocol is and should be with staff. Where there is a social media relationship with an individual, they'd like there to be some clarity around what that policy might be such that it makes sense on behalf of the town. They're interested in perhaps having an attendance policy, just sort of some accountability components. Also, they did speak to clarity in regard to council members. So we have a job as council members to make sure we understand staff's role and that we are appropriately communicating to board and committee members and residents on how to access board and committees or staff, et cetera. So that came through. They too want appreciation. They want to be recognized in different ways and provided some thanks. And again, consideration for their own expertise and subject matter professionalism that they bring to the table. So it's funny, you hear similar thematics coming from all the players. Next. Best practices, we've talked about this. So we're just looking at who out there, like-minded wise, municipality wise, are doing things that make sense and that might be applicable to the town of Louisville. So we're constantly searching that. We asked a little bit about that at those meetings, so the information you've just heard about came from that direct inquiry. And then finally, the big item is coming out of all of this material that happened over the past month, and frankly, all the work group meetings that have happened over the past year plus, is a first draft of a handbook that was scheduled to be completed when we first talked to you about this in October. We've now moved that timeline forward to August because the first draft has already been developed. The member orientation video is still being considered for completion fall of 2021, but we want you all to take a look at the handbook before we move in that direction. So next. So again, this is just a draft. The work group has not met since I finished up my process. So they technically haven't even had a chance to get all of the information culminated. So what I've done is I took all of the information they've provided over the years and what happened over the past month and pulled together just a draft, just to give you guys a taste of what might be forthcoming. So a handbook to advise the board and committee members will hit a lot of the needs that we just articulated, or I just articulated. Next slide, please. Again, very drafty, Joyce. The idea for a handbook would be to hit some of these key components. This would be for people who are either interested in volunteering or who have been recently appointed. So it hits the onboarding and the orientation that folks are saying that they want. I see Mr. Walker shaking his head out there as a new member. They would get information on how the board process functions, what the qualifications are, information to help people understand their roles, their responsibilities, what their scope is, and be pretty comprehensive in all of those things. So that's the start and the intent of what this document would be. It would be sort of a living, breathing document that we'd be updating, but that's the start of the draft intent. Next. And this is just a list. It's by no means complete, but it's a start. Everything from how do we appoint people to a board or committee? What are the qualifications? How do they differ for boards or committees? Do they? Public records, rules, et cetera. Roles and responsibilities, not just of the members, but drilling down a little bit more about if you are a chair or a vice chair, what is it that staff needs you to do? How should you be communicating back and forth? What are the roles of council and mayor? Minutes. What responsibilities does the board or committee have to those? How can they support the town clerk in getting those things tighter and clearer? And any remedies. So if there are issues that need to be addressed, how do we address them? Policies, code of ethics, as Bo and Stacy have outlined before, 160D has provided that we have a lot more updates in certain areas with regard to oath of office, so this would pull all of that together. The staff talked about making sure there's an attendance policy, just having some accountability so that people understand how often they need to come, et cetera. And then just the policies and procedures. What happens when it's time for comp plan? How do you have a plan of work? What about budget process? Reporting to council when, how, et cetera. And then finally, just a description of the boards. Not just, hey, here's when they meet, but given a statement of this is their mission, this is what they're about, this is what they're trying to get accomplished. A delineation of who the chair and vice chairs are. You see that on the website. But also what was coming through is an interest on behalf of the boards and committees to say, hey, how do I reach my fellow volunteers between and amongst boards and committees? So a directory of sorts. And then lastly, again, staff has talked about this over the past year, making sure that people receive this and sign off on it to say, hey, I've read it, I've reviewed it, I understand it, and I take responsibility for this appointment. Next. So for tonight, I just wanted to reinforce, I think I mentioned this briefly last week, and that is when asked about appreciation, when I asked the boards and committees about appreciation, clearly folks are very excited about the opportunity to be part of a VIP or a meet and greet with the community center. So that was very much something they were excited about. They really like the idea of some kind of council recognition for that annual volunteer week that happens nationally in April every year. So that seemed to make some sense. Again, I think I'd already mentioned this. And then lastly, I think without fault, every single one of them said, you know, we don't need anything special. We just want to be able to serve, be heard, be communicated with, and feel respected for what it is we're trying to accomplish. Okay? Next. So, as I said before, this isn't a one and done. This is a start in a process. So the work group is going to be coming together to dissect and dig down into all of this stuff to start making meaningful, actionable items out of this. So for next briefing in September, what we want to talk about is specifically 3 areas. Some of the specific recommendations that the work group is going to be coming up with in the next 3 weeks on what we think makes some sense communication-wise, process-wise. So that will be some very specific recommendations, assuming the board and committee group feels comfortable with those. So that would be coming out. Number 2, some initial review of the board and committee charters. And then finally, any final recommendations, not just coming out of the meetings with the board and committee members, but also convening some of the feedback from the leadership, which would be the chairs and the vice chairs. So we wouldn't want to give you all some recommendations on here's how we think things should happen without running it through the chairs and vice chairs of the board and committees. Next.
Next.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Again, just went through this. So this is what the work group will be working on, looking at the handbook, looking at charter consistency, exit interviews, and operationalization recommendations. Next. And again, this is the heart and soul. Council was interested in this because they want to make sure that board and committee members feel heard and understood and that we're listening and respecting their requests. So next, I think that might be it. Yeah, what I put behind this, and we'll send this out to you all, these are just the pieces of information that we shared a couple of months ago, which are the summarization of what you heard from the survey. Hit the next one, please, Joyce. The focus group, and then finally, just the work group outcomes that we're looking to accomplish. So with that, I'll pause. That's the end of the quick update. Next, what would that be, September 2nd? More to come on those deeper items. Questions?
Council members?
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. First of all, well done for the committee or work group. I think this is some really valuable information that the boards and committees have had an opportunity to provide to us, and so I look forward to seeing what that's going to look like in a few weeks. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to show appreciation to your leadership in this, Jean Marie, and it seems very thorough, and I think it will only enhance communication.
Anybody else from the work group? Comments? Okay. Thank you, guys.
Very good. Thank you, Jean Marie.
Yes, sir.
For those of you who may have let the date slip your mind, we turned 30 this year. And that as a town is very young, but when we began this endeavor, this adventure 30 years ago, and Ken, you were part of that, we really wanted the town governance and the town direction and vision to be shaped by our residents. We didn't just want to have a board that from a top down pretty much determined where we were going to go and how we were going to get there. And that's why we formed a variety of boards and committees to provide advice and support to the council on a variety of issues. We're now 30, so this is probably a really pretty good time to review that and see where we all are. And maybe we'll do a really good job for the next 30 years using this as our framework. Thank you, Jean Marie. Very good. Ms. Walker, you have some unfinished business for us.
Excuse me, Mayor, I think next is
It's not
public
really
forum.
unfinished business.
It's a public forum. I made an assumption there, but this is an opportunity at a public forum for anybody who wishes to come forward and address the council.
Right.
Share with us your thoughts, your aspirations, your hopes, your wishes, and for us to listen to you. Is there anybody here who would like to address the council at this time? Just call it a premonition, Mr. Franklin.
Yes, I understand, but
Very good.
we need to make the opportunity.
Ms. Walker, you're up.
Okay. All right, can you hear? I'd like to have council appoint Gretchen Roberts to the Environmental Conservation and Sustainability Committee. That would be appointment order 2021006. That information was in your packet last week, so it's the same information. It has not changed.
Any questions of Ms. Walker? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve appointment 2021006. That's my memory, and it's not so fantastic. Is that correct, Ms.
That's
Walker?
correct.
Okay.
And thank you, Ms. Hunt, for pointing it out earlier. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Ms. Hunt makes the motion, Mr. Franklin makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. So now we're down to where I wanted to be before, Ms. Walker. So this is a real challenge, folks, because I wear glasses to read, and when I wear a mask and wear my glasses, everything fogs up. It's like I'm in San Francisco on the bay in the morning. So excuse me if I'm missing things on the agenda. Mr. Franklin, thank you for your sharp eyesight. Ms. Walker, you're up.
Oh, actually, I'm not really up that much. Hank, do you want to talk about all the work that's been done on Resolution 2021-051 from the previously called Recycling Group? And talk about how we got to where we are now?
Well, it's like I said last week, I guess it was last week, we did have Kay Smitherman visit us, who is the chairman of that committee. That group has been working on the resolution for quite some time. I guess it was over a year ago when we had a fellow named Gus, can't remember his last name, came to us. What's that? Preschel? Okay. And he had a request for the town to consider doing exactly what the town has done, which is to consider establishing its own goals for renewable energy and conservation measures to be able to hit at certain specific dates in the future. And the committee got together and they started working on that. In the midst of it, they went through a charter change to give them the scope and breadth to be able to do that work. And then as a group, they started working on their version of the resolution. There was a lot of meetings of the group and a lot of interaction with staff to come up with the final version of the resolution that is before you this evening. Ms. Kay Smitherman was here last week to be able to answer any questions on behalf of the committee that did the work as well. And tonight is a culmination of that work with the resolution that is before you for consideration this evening.
Any questions for the manager?
I mentioned this to Mrs. Walker. We referenced last week, Mr. Hauff and I, on the whereas about midway through. It says, which requires the state to reduce should be its, and then there's GHG, which is an acronym for greenhouse gas.
Right.
So I think the request was to make sure that was explicit there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Council members, any other questions? Before we entertain a motion, I do want us to understand that this is not just a resolution that we're going to pass and tuck it away someplace, and when we get to 2030 or 2040, we'll say, oh yeah, we did pass that resolution back in 2021. This is going to require work on our part, work on the town's part. It's going to require some additional expense on our behalf to achieve some of these goals. But I don't think there's really anybody, maybe there are people sitting at this council chamber today who don't believe that greenhouse gas and global climate change are an issue. I happen to feel strongly that they are. And so I think this is a great step forward for the town. It's not as ambitious as maybe some would have liked, but it certainly is getting us in the ballpark and getting us in the game, and that's where we need to be. We'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Ms. Foster makes the motion, and I believe it was Ms. Welch makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That's unanimous. Ms. Tolbert, you have the next two items.
Good evening, council. The first one is Resolution 2021053, setting a public hearing for Thursday, September 9th. It will be at 7 p.m. in the council chambers to receive comments on rezoning request L100 from Forsyth County jurisdiction AG, which is agricultural zoning, to Louisville AG, agricultural zoning. If you remember, there was most recently a property off of Williams Road that was annexed into the town. The state law gives us 60 days to assign zoning to that particular property, or a property that's annexed. And so we're following the process to do so. Last night at the planning board meeting, the public hearing was held to recommend approval of ag zoning, Louisville zoning, to be assigned to this property. So we are just following through with the requirements of the public hearing process for rezonings. And so this resolution is simply to set the date for that public hearing and to give me the go-ahead to do the proper notifications to property owners and newspaper ads.
Council members, any questions?
Motion to approve. Resolution 2021-053.
Second?
Second. We have a motion by Mr. Franklin, a second by Mr. Foster. Dr. Sadler, you had a question?
I did have a
sorry.
question. Is there any difference between the requirements in the county and in the town?
There are a few differences. There are slight differences. Some of them are just differences in some uses that are allowed, that were allowed actually in Forsyth County. Our ag zoning is a little bit more restrictive. There's not as many uses permitted in ag zoning as there were in Forsyth County. But it is the most similar zoning for agriculture that we have versus Forsyth County.
Okay, thanks.
Any additional discussion?
I
Yes, sir, Mr. Franklin.
I know we'll be briefed again in September.
Yes, sir.
But even though I made the motion to set the hearing, that's exactly what the motion was for. The current use on the AG property, would that would translate to our AG also?
That is correct.
As far
yeah.
as I don't want to call it ancillary, but, I'm trying to say the distillery itself sitting on agricultural.
You are correct. It
Okay.
is an ancillary use.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
And there are farm exemptions. They have farm exemptions on local, state, and federal levels. Whatever the underlying zoning is, then those farm
Okay.
exemptions still transfer to the town of Louisville.
I understand that piece. I do understand.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that's unanimous. Ms.
Okay.
Talbert, another public hearing.
The next one is Resolution 2021055. This is to set another public hearing for the same night, September 9th, 2021 at 7 p.m. in these council chambers to receive comments on a UDO text amendment. If you recall, we have a section in our ordinance currently that allows off-site parking for multifamily and institutional uses to be like on an accessory lot that could be a different zoning than what the use is actually allowed to be in, like a residential zoning district, for instance. The planning board wanted to explore that. So we did just that. I brought forth to them two different options. One option was to take it completely out and to no longer allow that provision. And I'll go deeper into this when you're briefed in the September briefing and the public hearing. But the two options were given, one to take that completely out, to no longer allow that provision on an accessory lot if it's a different zoning. And then the other option that I gave was if the planning board wanted to keep that in, what it would look like to add more regulation, like buffer regulations, only allowing a certain percentage of their total calculation of parking to be on the accessory lot, those types of things. And the planning board did recommend to move forward, to send the recommendation for option one to take that completely out to council, is their recommendation moving forward. But so this is a UDO text amendment, and we will, again, follow the public hearing process. The planning board held their public hearing on this particular case in July, and so now I'm bringing that forth to the council to follow up on that for a final decision.
Council members, any questions?
Was there much participation by the public in relationship to this particular change?
No, there was none.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion to set the public hearing.
Motion.
Second.
Ms. Foster makes the motion, Mr. Franklin makes the second. Any additional discussion? Ask them to state their name and their address. Hold their comments for 3 minutes. Very good. With that, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That is unanimous.
Council.
Thank you very much. Ms. Walker, you have our next item.
Okay. Council will remember that in the meeting last month, the staff presented some information regarding our student leadership. And Hank, would you like to, first of all, before we talk about the ordinance itself, talk about the revamping of student leadership?
What we talked about and council has agreed to is that we're going to revamp the student leadership instead of a committee and work it as an educational program. The educational program will be a concentrated education over probably summer months and have this during the day and happen probably anywhere over a 2 to 4 week period. And then it's going to be developed with curriculum that is very similar to a lot of communities that do kind of community and institutional training for their own residents and citizens.
And Hank, would you take a second and just talk about the rationale to make this move that you all are suggesting?
Yeah, over the years with the Student Leadership Committee, we've seen a decline in the attendance and participation of the students. I think it's indicative of the way things have gone in our lives as parents and the kids. We are pulled in many different directions now, and I think that for no fault of the participants of the program, they just are in the position now where there is a lot of demands on their time and their attention. So it's had a detrimental effect on the attendance level for the program, and it has suffered in the past. It's a program in which we historically ask for programs to be created, and they could have involved and do often involve members of the community, such as the fire department, the sheriff's office, and other people that come and give of their time for the education of the students. And that what we've seen over the last probably year and a half, 2 years, is that the participation, especially at times in which there are guests and presentations being made, has gotten to the point where there are almost as many people there to make a presentation as there are students in the group. So what we've done now is to, that on top of the fact that it's always been a program, because you're dealing with youth and children, we've had 2 staff members available at every meeting as well, so it's a very staff-intensive process. So that's why we went into the background for having the change.
Hank, if I might, what ages will be included in that summer program?
That I'm assuming we'll shoot for the same age limits or brackets as we have enjoyed with the student leadership program. That will be the goal.
Which would be 6th grade through high school?
Potentially. If we can't make that up, make that happen, we'll see. Maybe we can get different cohorts put together based on age brackets. It's just something that has to be developed and looked into.
Thank you.
Okay. So based on the direction that council gave us to move forward with the educational program, I wrote an ordinance to dissolve the student leadership so that we could move forward with that suggestion. Otherwise, it would still look like we were holding committee meetings when we were not.
Mayor, I have a couple questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Was there a decrease, you mentioned there was a decrease in participation over the last 1.5 to 2 years. Was that something that you saw prior, from year 2 to 3 years ago, or is that just during the COVID period? And was there any consideration that it was due to COVID?
It was happening before COVID.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then one follow-up question. Did the staff consider postponing it until staffing requirements were met? Was there any consideration of just postponing the committee?
Postponing the meetings?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No.
I'm not sure what you mean by staffing requirements met. What do you?
So one of the considerations of this dissolving, and I'm sorry if you guys can't hear me through the mask, was that you're going to dissolve it due to participation and staffing. So.
Those were factors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there was no consideration of postponement.
Postponement.
The meetings.
Yeah, I don't know that postponing the meeting would have had much difference for it, quite frankly. I think that it's always been a case where it's been the availability and of the participants. Staff is going to be here, and I think if you put it off to the next week or the next 2 weeks, it's just going to increase the amount of effort for staff to have to come to a meeting that no one has come to, and then to have to postpone it to a future date and do the same thing over again.
Thank you.
Question? Yes, ma'am.
So, and I've spoken to Ms. Walker individually about this. Is there not, first of all, I appreciate staff's recommendation, okay? Number one. I hear your concern about efficiency, and I hear all of that. So thank you. I'm taking that very seriously. My heartburn is around just summarily dissolving something that's been around since 1999. Not that that doesn't make sense. But what I'm still wondering is if there was some way, and I'm hearing Melissa Mady, Mrs. Hunt speaking to this, I wouldn't use the term postponement, but is there some way to say, we're working on another alternative, and until such time as that alternative happens, not dissolving the committee?
I guess my
Per se?
question would be, if no one is coming, there really isn't a committee. They're not here. And that is the big problem that we have. When you asked about how many years before COVID, we didn't meet through COVID, and believe it or not a single student asked, are we going to meet again? So that became problematic. I would say that we've had a decline in participation for at least 4 years prior to COVID. Mm-hmm. So we could actually see the numbers going down. How that would work, I remember one year we had, Mike, 26 people who said they were going to be on the committee, and I would say that for every meeting, if we had 10 to show up, we were doing good, and that was about 4 or 5 years ago. And then everything just steadily went downhill from there.
Have we dissolved committees in the past? And if we have, how many?
Yes.
Have we dissolved in the history?
Since I've been here, we've dissolved one.
Thank you.
And that was this is just the formal way of doing it.
And which committee was that was dissolved in the past, if you recall?
Yes, it was Sister City.
Thank you.
And that was sort of the same situation. We were always trying to contact and work with them, but we could never get responses back from them. And that went on for, Mike, if you remember, 3 or 4 years. So council finally said, well, we're wasting staff's time as well as our, residents' time just trying to work with them to keep it together. So they finally dissolved it.
Joyce, do you remember what Kentucky town that was?
It was Middlesboro.
Thank you. That's good.
Middlesboro.
I knew it was in Kentucky.
Middlesboro, Kentucky.
Council members, any other questions? This is a committee that's always been near and dear to my heart because we believe strongly, and I believe I speak for all the council members and staff, we believe strongly that there should be an opportunity for our younger adults to learn about government and civics and how the town in which they live operates. And hopefully we might foster, pardon the pun, Ms. Foster, an opportunity or an interest in them to maybe grow up one day and be an elected official or work for a town government. I don't think we want to remove that opportunity, and I think what we're proposing, what staff is proposing, as I understand it, is to just reshape that opportunity so that we do it in a little more condensed version, one that maybe can be a little more staff intensive, but also one that is during a time when we're not competing with so many other things that students now are competing against. I know I've been at several meetings to speak, and the pizza arrives, they order pizza for 8, and 3 people arrive, and we have a discussion among 3 of us or 2 of us. Oftentimes, it's unfortunate, but oftentimes students will get up and leave in the middle of the meeting right after pizza because they have something else they have to go to. So I think that competing on weeknights with other activities and events make it a bit problematic. And again, Ms. Foster, I'm sensitive to what you're saying. Mr. Franklin, I'm certainly sensitive to what you're feeling. And Ms. Hunt, we don't want to eliminate an opportunity for students to participate in an activity like this, that maybe we're thinking of a way to make it more meaningful.
Can we create an ordinance that will state about the new educational programming? I mean, is there an ordinance that is there something that we can do to ensure that we are?
It really would be required to have an ordinance for an educational
Right.
program type thing.
We'll probably bring you a policy
Yeah.
that we'll be following, because more than likely what you will be doing is approving a resolution that has a policy attached to it that talks about exactly how it will work and how long it will be, and some of the activities that will go on with it, just like some of the other policies that you've approved in the past.
Ms. Foster?
Ms. Hunt, are you referencing in the resolution itself, it says, whereas at its briefing meeting tonight, the council agreed to revamp this town's student leadership program? Are you talking about making sure there's something referenced to ensure?
Yeah,
That we're gonna-
I mean, whether it's an ordinance, I mean, something that will ensure that we do continue to move forward with the purpose of the committee and why we originally created it, which was to support student involvement and leadership in the community.
Yep. And that's my issue altogether. It's just,
I think
it's a
that could be-
process.
I mean,
for me.
Councilwoman Hunt mentioned an ordinance, but I think a resolution,
Okay, yeah, I'm not, yeah, thank you.
ordinance is rule of law kind of thing.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I probably
Yeah,
misspoke.
thank
too.
you
Yeah.
for that clarification.
So, Ms. Walker, what do you wish of us this evening?
I'm hoping that you all will approve the ordinance that I've put forth, only because the information on that committee is in the town code, and the next ordinance is one that would be correcting the town code to not show that committee.
And then I guess as part of that, would you bring us in September a resolution for the council to all agree upon that we want to move forward with some type of additional programming? I believe, is that what
We
you're?
can
I
do
can.
that.
There won't be a lot of detail in it, but it will definitely get the point across as far as the intent of council.
Right.
I think that's what you're looking for, Ms. Hunt, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're going to remove something that's so valuable, you know, it's one of those tokens of differentiation that I think the town of Louisville has when it comes to student leadership. And I think if we're going to dissolve something, then we need to ensure that we are replacing it with something or revamping it. It needs to be on paper. so
Yeah,
to
I think
speak.
we can come up with something that clearly states the intent of the town council and the town to pursue the program for the future of the kids in a learning environment for this type of work.
And may I also say this? I'm with Fred when it comes to the same thing with the student leadership, because I can remember one of the early on students that used to attend, because she's an adult now, that attended West Forsyth, who ended up coming up with the Students Republican Committee over there and getting them involved in government. Another, and I have to say, I'm bragging on my granddaughter, who went through that same program and did get involved with government. And I can cite a number of kids early on, but for some odd reason, lately, the kids don't seem to have the interest in civics the way, so that they can understand what's going on. And the way Hank and the rest of the staff were trying to think of this is to give them a meaningful program that will really show them how local government works and to make it very intense. Right now, they're just coming once a month. They don't seem to see the importance of it.
Very good. So we've got two things happening here. Number one, and one is to go ahead and approve this ordinance, but I would like to, I'll make the motion to approve the ordinance, but I'd like to have the motion to also consider that at our September meeting, staff come back to us with a resolution stating our intention and commitment to student leadership and how we propose to move this forward. That would be my motion.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Second.
So the motion, just to be clear about now that we're discussing your motion changed. So you're saying this motion with the contingency that that's coming forward in September?
Correct.
Thank you.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Was that?
I
You?
made the
Was that-
second.
Ken did.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
thank you.
If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed?
I'm sorry?
I'm in opposition.
Okay.
I have to be in opposition as well.
Okay, so
But thank you.
It is 5-2 with Ms. Foster and Ms. Hunt in opposition. Thank you very much, council.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Joyce, I believe you have another
I
one.
have the
for
next
us.
one. Yes, the next one is ordinance 2021-042, and that amends Chapter 13 of the Town Code. We are changing 13-4 from Recycling Committee to Environmental Conservation and Sustainability Committee. And that is based on the approval that council made when they changed the name from recycling to that. The other thing that we're doing now that you have given permission on the ordinance above, then we'll be removing 13.7, which is a reference to student leadership.
Very good. Any questions for Ms. Walker? Now, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Motions do require seconds.
I'll second it.
Dr. Sadler makes the motion. Mr. Franklin makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposition?
Very good. That is 6-1 with Ms. Hunt in opposition. Ryan?
Good afternoon, Council. I bring to you ordinance 2021043, amending budget ordinance 2021001 in the amount of $4,000 to forestry mulch and area behind the new community center.
Very good. You want to elaborate just a little bit on what we're doing, why we're doing this, and
We're pretty much going to be doing the same process that we're going to be doing in the back part of Jack Warren Park, where we're going to be going in with a large machine and pretty much cleaning out the undergrowth. Right now, if you look at the back, if you're standing on the back porch of the community center and you look out into the woods, it's pretty dense. There's a lot of weeds and small trees. They're going to go in and take, I believe it's an area, it's 100 feet deep and 300 feet wide.
they're also going to do a little work on that magnolia tree.
And trying to save the magnolia tree that that's close by.
Very good. Any questions for Ryan?
Football field.
Yeah.
It's big.
Motion to approve?
Mr. Franklin makes the motion.
Second?
Ms. Hunt makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That is unanimous. Pam, you're going to appropriate the money for this.
Yeah, we have resolution 2021-054 declaring surplus items and authorizing the electronic auction of surplus personal property. And I briefed you on this last week. We would like to put on GovDeals 3 pieces of exercise equipment. And we also have some excess wood boards and hardy boards from the new community center construction. And if you have any questions about those, I think Ryan could probably address those.
Something just dawned on me, if you'll.
Sure.
The lumber,
Yes, sir.
what type of quantity are we talking about?
I don't have it in front of me.
I mean,
Hold on just a
let me
minute.
ask you this. At one point in time, we had a potential project that was never done. We even had a fund to put a maintenance building on the Jack Warren Park, and that was when we had 15 acres. If now that we're going to have 30 acres assembled down there, if there's enough lumber to build, I mean, that's all I'm asking.
It's not a whole lot. It's a lot, but it's not anything where we could build.
A 20 by
No, it's
20
not.
building.
It's
Okay,
nothing like
all
that.
right.
I agree. I wish if we had the storage to put it somewhere.
Yeah.
I could see us keeping it to possibly use it later, but we just don't have the plate. We just don't have the storage to put it
Okay,
in.
and lumber prices are coming down
Sure.
now, so if we, you know, whatever we purchase when we purchase, it's not gonna bring at auction what we purchased it for, but it doesn't matter. If we ever have this other project, then we need to do that as a project, so,
Mayor,
thank you.
if I might. Ryan, this is going to be a public auction, right? Should we advertise or let the public know where they can look?
It will be on GovDeals. I'll let Pam explain.
Yeah, we are required to advertise for 10 days, and it will be advertised on the town's website, and after that, it will go up for sale on GovDeals.
On where?
GovDeals.
Oh, GovDeals. Thank you.
Is that a site that's up all the time with various municipalities selling stuff?
It is, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Very good. Any additional questions? Will entertain a motion?
So move.
Second?
Ms. Welch makes the motion. Ms. Hunt makes the second. Any additional discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That is unanimous. Hank, we're up on administrative reports.
Okay, let's see here. Saturday, the 14th, we've got a concert coming up. I'm not recalling the name of it. Pam?
It's the British Invaders Band.
British Invaders, and that is a group that's going to play a variety of different British rock and roll music.
Beatles, Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Again, coming up towards the end of August on the 28th, there is another concert. You got that one?
Jukebox Rehab.
Jukebox Rehab.
That
Okay.
one actually starts at 6 o'clock. So it'll be 6 to 9 o'clock, and I believe there's an opening group that they're bringing with them, but we don't know who that is yet.
All right. And lastly, I'll stop with Labor Day, which will be on Monday, September 6th, and that's a town holiday, and town offices will be closed. Moving forward a little bit, I've got a couple of things. The first, I think I talked last week about the Gateway project and how we've been through 2 advertisements, and in both times we have received no interest in the project. Again, for those people watching the meeting this evening, the primary reason that we see for the lack of interest in our project when it was bid and then rebid is just the state of the economy and the amount of work present for contractors. They are just too busy right now. That's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a bad thing for us. So what we're planning to do is to delay for a while the re-advertisement of the project and be strategic so that we can get this project, again, with the project being available at the end of February, and then with timing with the DOT and the contractors, what we're hoping for is that they'll look favorably on this project because it is a project that's going to go on for 8 months, and from a business perspective on a calendar year will be very attractive to a company because it is a project that is going to last the majority of the entire 12 months. So we think that if by doing this, we're certainly going to improve our chances to gain interest on the project and move forward with the best, the best project we can from a dollars and cents point of view.
Hank, have we been able to have any conversations with DOT about supplemental funding? Because I'm going to assume that prices are going to continue to go up, particularly with the amount of work that's going to come on the market this next two or 3 years.
We can't do anything with the Gateway project, but we do have 2 projects we're working on supplemental funding. We have a CMAQ project right now, which is a multi-use path. We do know that we do have the money in hand. Stacy Tolbert and I have been talking with the MPO downtown. We're going to submit an application on this round, and if we're able to put that together, that will be for supplemental funds to an existing project that's already funded. So what we're doing is that because of the Louisville-Vienna project, and that's a CMAQ project that has got some age on it now, and that and the pandemic has caused project prices to go up, we're going to ask for consideration for the MPO to approve additional funds for this project so we can get it up to a today's prices kind of range. That's going to happen, I think it's September 2nd. Mm-hmm. We're going to be coming back to council with a resolution, hopefully giving support for that application for supplemental funds. Again, we already have a project. We'll just be asking for funds in addition to the project. In December, there's going to be another call for projects, and this is for, I can't remember my acronyms, but this is a normal STPG funding cycle. This is for federal funds through FHWA. We have an intersection roundabout change at Vienna and Louisville-Vienna and Robin Hood Road. That again is an older project. We're hoping to be able to get started on that project from a PE, get to 25% plans, then be able to go back to the call for projects in December with a very precise number on what we estimate that the project is going to cost long-term when we get to contracting for the construction of it. So I'm glad you reminded me about that, Mayor. Those are 2 opportunities that we're going to go, quite frankly, back to the well for additional funds for some older projects.
Great. And will you share with our audience what CMAQ is other than something you eat with cheese?
NPO and PE.
What's that? It's congestion mitigation air quality is CMAQ.
Yeah.
And they've changed the other acronym so much I can't remember.
State Transportation Improvement Project.
There you go. That's it.
And FWA is for Federal Highway Authority.
And you said NPO
Metropolitan Planning Organization.
and PE.
What's that?
You said PE.
Preliminary
Right, for
engineering.
those people who are watching who don't have all these
That's later,
acronyms,
too.
please, no acronyms, thank you.
I will add as a bit of further interest or on this project is we have been in discussions with the DOT. There is a Federal Endangered Species Act. In that Species Act, you have both plants and animals, just not animals. We have had pointed out to us that there has been a new plant added to the Endangered Species Act.
Poison oak.
What's that?
Poison oak.
Yeah, poison oak. I wish. So here's the difficulty on it. We're not that bad right now because we're about to go into the planning phase. We're hoping to have a contract for the PE to start in September on that preliminary engineering on the roundabout. But we have to add a study for this endangered plant. The plant only grows in the right-of-ways of public. They love public rights-of-ways, for instance. So the difficulty in this is that you only have a window from August to October to complete your study. If you do not study during that time period when the plant is supposed to be present, you cannot study it and you can't move forward with your project. The Gateway project is going to have to be studied because we haven't had shovel in the dirt right now because we've been through 2 advertisements. So we're going to add that. We'll see a supplemental contract probably for the Gateway to study the corridor for the plant as well. We'll be studying for the plant at the intersection of Louisville, Vienna, and Robin Hood. And then we'll have to consider also whether or not we're going to want to do our own study outside of just our own study for the CMAQ project on Louisville, Vienna. Because if we started a preliminary engineering study, say November, December, January, if you can't study and look for the plant until August, you're stymied. So we're trying to look at project management for how this happens, how you get the plants study done, what's the best way to do it. And also, frankly, we may want to start looking at the possibility in the future that if we have an idea for an area that we want to apply for a future project, considering going ahead and studying for the plant, because I would go ahead and study for the plant and see if it's there before you invest a lot of time and money into a project just to be held up because there's a plant growing there. I don't mean to sound funny, that's just the way it is for it.
So I have 2 things. One is, if you just, first off, is the study predicated upon the knowledge that the plant is already there or the assumption that it might be?
It's a potential habitat.
Yeah,
but you have to go out and look for it.
Right. Somebody knows what it looks like, right?
Yes.
So if you identify the plant being in whatever space it is you're planning on doing, whatever you're planning on doing, then is it required that you move the plant or that you don't do your project?
I'm not clear on that one right now, but my experience in the past with endangered species of any kind, it gets in the way and holds up projects. It's not been a good thing as it relates to the timeliness of the project moving forward. I don't know what the implications are of the project if the plant is growing there. Stacy Tolbert and I participated on the conversation with DOT and environmental. I believe, Stacy, they said that if you're in an area in which there is regular mowing of people, like people are mowing the grass and things like that, that is not likely to be a place where it's going to be a good habitat for this plant because it's a wild plant for it. So I guess the point being is that our Gateway project, for instance, that entire length of the Gateway project is mowed on a regular basis. So we believe that there is a less likely opportunity for this plant to exist there because of the way that the right-of-ways are maintained than it would be if it was out in more of a rural country setting where someone's not out there mowing grass on a regular basis.
It's one of those things that you have to visually see, sounds like.
Yes.
Because, I mean, the plant will still be there even though you don't see it.
Right.
I mean, if it's mowed down, I mean,
Yeah, it could be. I mean, if you're out there and you're in a stretch of road and you've got the property owners are out there mowing the grass, it's not going to ever have an opportunity.
Right. So the final thing is cost. So you got to do this environmental study.
Yes.
What's the do you have a projection on what it costs to do something like that?
No, I don't.
And who does it?
You have to be an approved engineering firm with the state of North Carolina.
That has people on
qualified
staff
people
who-
that are trained and subject matter experts in this type of endangered species.
All right, okay.
So that's just a point of information, but when we come back in September, we're going to have a lot more conversation about looking for this plant. Because at that point, we've got the month of September and the month of October to do it. If we don't do it in October, by the end of October, then we are sitting in place until August of next year.
Can we spray in August?
Hank, what else you have for us?
Okay.
Hank, just wanted to say thanks for getting to the root of that.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
Good water.
Thing I had, and I apologize for not having it expelled out on the agenda, is I sent out some material related to work on the community center, and I think everybody should have at their place a copy of a memo that I sent out yesterday, and I won't go and read it for you, it's in front of you, but after last week when we went through the revision of the town rate structure for Mary Alice Warren, the town council asked for the group to take another look at it. We did meet this past Monday. As you see on the memo, the group met for 2.5 hours to discuss it. This matter has been in discussion from the group ever since we got back into meeting on Zoom. They spent a lot of time on the Mary Alice Warren rate structure. We did change the rate structure as it was seen in a draft form last week, and as you will probably remember from reading the memo, in general what happened was the groups or the small group size for rentals, that price has come up a bit. The groups for larger rentals has come down a bit, and we have gone and mirrored a rate structure that is very close, if not identical, to the rate structure that we use for other park facilities such as the G. Galloway Community Center. If anyone want to go over this a little bit, I tried to lay it out very simply.
Council members? Questions, discussion?
I just have a comment. I really like the way that this was presented in memorandum form, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And
Looks much
color-coded.
better.
Yes, thank you. I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. I mean, for the groups, the large groups of over 50 participants, it's a 4-hour minimum for $100 an hour. If you're an out-of-town renter, it's an additional $100 on top of that. And then aside from that, it's a $75 additional add-on charge if you're taking the kitchen for it. You move into, and then for each room that you've gotten into, that will be duplicated for each room. So if we've got the Shallowford room, the Louisville room, and the Vienna room, you've got too many people for Shallowford and you got to move to Louisville, you're basically just going to be reserving and paying for each room just like this rate structure happens here. But you're only going to pay for the kitchen one time, even though you have 2 rooms going for it. And then lastly, we took out the activities room and the conference room from the large structure, and we put that into the multi-purpose room structure for less than 50 people. The multi-purpose room structure, identical to the large group, but we reduced the price as a recommendation for $100 an hour down to $40 an hour. In an activities room, same rationale as far as the rate structure for it. Activities room is at $25 an hour. Conference room is at $25 an hour. And the kitchen that you see right there is just a flat add-on charge for it. And then I gave you sort of a walkthrough on how to calculate it if you wanted the entire building. So at the very end of it, the group did decide, as far as the overall charge, we were not going to use the conference room as a part of calculating the entire building. So that's where we've been, and that's where we are this evening to present to you.
Council members, any questions? We have the chairman and a member of the Parks and Recreation Cultural Activities Committee here.
We're not planning on taking any action on this tonight, are we?
I think we're
No,
talking
not-
about
not
it.
tonight.
This is going to be approved next month?
Yeah, if everybody's okay with the direction of it. The only other thing that I think we can talk about it, and it's not necessary, is that as we get into this, And it's gonna be, a lot of this is just gonna be, just do it and see what happens. But if we get out there and we see that it's a very labor intensive, if we've got a big group out there, and we've been trained on the audio-visual equipment, but we have a group out there that wants to use the AV system and you have to have a staff member present, we'll see what that looks like. But we're going to reserve judgment on whether or not we need to come back with a recommendation for charges on that type of thing until we see it in action some.
Just going forward, obviously, I'm going to use the term, there needs to be some rules set, if you will. And with that use of that word, I'm going to try to give a few examples where you may have someone rent 2 of the rooms and have 100 people, and it just so it coincides with another group that is renting a room with less than 50 people, and who has dibs on the kitchen if they're both going for 4 hours?
First come, first served.
Well,
Yeah.
now, I'm just saying,
Okay.
we need to develop the rooms, but then if I've got 100 people and 2 rooms rented, there's 2 doors that go out onto the back porch and only 1 door that goes out on the back porch from another room. How do you divvy that up? You know, those types of things are going to need to be considered going forward when it comes to rules of order and how this, because the facility is large enough to accommodate multiple groups at one time, and we've never had a facility to accommodate multiple groups at one time. So I just wanted to throw that out there for future thought by our Parks and Rec Board, by our staff, because this is something that I promise you, if we don't consider, probably within the first 6 months, we're going to run into it. And when we do, we're going to run into it head on, and we're going to be da-da-da-da-da. You know, how do we resolve it when it's already occurred and everything? So with that being said, I don't want to belabor it anymore tonight, but this is a unique facility for our town as we go to open it. There's things that we've never had to consider before.
Correct.
When you get to renting a pavilion, there's only one pavilion at the town square. There's only one pavilion at Jack Warren Park. You know, it's not multiple groups using the same facility with the potential for having, you know, 2 people wanting the same thing at one time. And I've got other thoughts about that when we get down the road, but I want to throw that out for, since we got some folks here that can discuss that.
Councilmember Franklin, as we were discussing our new software, we had already started talking about how we can set the software up to hopefully eliminate a lot of that. So we're actually working on
Well,
that.
and that's great, and I'm glad we have the software, but I didn't want to throw this one out, but you could have a Louisville citizen want to rent the entire community center every Saturday, you know, and Sunday in May, and then turn around and resell it, if you will, and put weddings on, and use our facility and do something like that. Because they're a Louisville citizen. They pay the rent. We can't dictate necessarily who their guests are. All I'm getting at is you've got people that are shrewd out there, and I hope our reservation system would catch something like that.
Right.
So,
One thing we don't, unless you are on our approved list of nonprofits, basically in our rules that we have for all of the facilities, there's no multi-use like that. So we can write that in, I guess, into our rules for rec desks.
but if I wanted to rent the place, if I had 5 daughters and they're getting married 5 consecutive weekends, as a citizen of Louisville, you tell me I could not rent that whole building for 5 consecutive weekends. And my point is, you've got people out here that could try to reserve it with hopes of, quote, putting on the weddings as a separate thing for whomever.
Right.
And that's all, I'm just throwing things out like that.
I mean, we do have also a rule against charging. If you rent the facility, you cannot charge anyone to come into the facility.
Well, that may take care of it. But I'm just saying that I would hate somebody to be able to, behind the scenes, block out things like that. And then somehow, with electronics, be able to resell it, if you will, and host events at a much cheaper venue than they would be hosted if they're wedding planners and they're looking for venues, is my point. But there's, you know, just keep that on the radar screen, staff, and talk about it. Because there's gonna be people that try to.
Ms. Foster?
As always.
Question, thank you. So I want to be clear, and having been immersed into board and committee procedures and policies and all that business. So Hank, you've made the presentation based upon attending the Parks and Rec meeting. And the Parks and Rec have, as you said, been working on this for several months in an advisory capacity to staff, right? I mean, this is ultimately got a recommendation coming from staff. I'm trying to make sure I'm clear about who.
In this case, this is one case where we sat down with the committee.
Mhm.
We went through the possibilities and troubleshot and tried to see the potential issues. The Parks and Rec Committee was in on the ground floor from how we set these rates and why we're setting these rates. So this was not a staff recommendation. Ultimately, a lot of times that's what happens. Policies are written and they're brought in for review. But in this particular case, the Recreation Committee was fairly involved from ground zero in building this structure.
But you are making the this recommendation is coming from you as manager, or you're making this recommendation as a liaison?
And with the committee saying, I think we're finished.
Okay.
In fact, I went into the committee meeting myself with other numbers, and during the process of discussions for it, we came out and probably were not that close to where I started with it. But this was just a lot of work and deliberation from members of the committee.
So what's happening next month? Just so I'm clear.
I have a rate, what is it, the rate schedule. Right, rate schedule is
Okay.
going to come back with the addition of these rates onto the rate schedule for you.
And please keep in mind that the information that Hank gave to you is based on an hourly basis. But if you look at the fee schedule that we currently have, everything is set up in 4 hours with additional hours added. So this will be using the same format as we have existing.
Councilmember?
And last week at briefing, there was a comment by Dr. Sadler regarding statement of purpose. Is that something that will be brought before us at briefing?
Are you, the update to the actual 16-18? I think I sent that out to you all already, and that purpose is actually at the beginning of each one of the facilities. So it's there, and if you all have a comment to expand it or change, just let me know.
Sure, thank you.
So does the committee take that into consideration, the purpose? Has it been modified by the committee at all in any way?
No, not the purpose for it.
No.
So, was that part of the charge of the committee, though, to look at stuff like that, or no?
It can be, yes.
It might be helpful.
You reviewed everything that I had sent. Yeah, I had sent that information to them, and I didn't get any comments back. And you didn't get any comments either, did you? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Philosophy.
I'll admit that I'm blank on what we have as our mission or our purpose or whatever. Could you shoot a copy of that out to council members?
I believe
Was that in the material that you sent them as well?
I thought that was, no, I don't think
Well,
so. I
how
think what
about
I sent to them
this thing in there?
was the
Town code,
existing.
yep.
Was the existing one, but I can send
Okay,
you
put it
the
on
one
here
for
next time it
for
says
Mary
something.
Alice. Yeah, I'll send that out to you.
Yeah, that'd be helpful, Joyce, and that way we can attach that to the information. Susan, I've got a question for you and Ryan, since you both are here. Did you all have any discussion about, in initially setting rates, did you all have any discussion about, well, let's set them lower and see what demand is. And then if we need to, we can raise them. Or did you have any discussion about, well, let's set them higher, and if we don't have demand, we can lower them?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes, and I think at our last meeting, we felt that we were comfortable with the numbers, I believe, but we decided to keep it higher and see what happens let it run for the first year and make adjustments after that if we had to, if we were getting nothing. I suspect we'll get, I mean, I feel that the numbers are good, so I think we will be running it. But it's a lot easier, and that was our consensus, we all agreed it's a lot easier to reduce the rates than to try to bring them up.
I think part of that too is the software and I can't remember what our deadline going in the future, but we could go a year out with taking reservations.
Right.
And to come into it too low and have people rent the facility out as far as a year out to the future, then we would be stuck with that as opposed to being on the high side and it wasn't happening, and then we could start coming down from there to dial it back.
Yeah, okay. Second thing is the conference room is kind of an animal to itself. It's a little different than everything else. Did you all have any discussion, or would you be open to entertaining some discussion about the conference room should be open to anybody without charge? Because that's really just for if a homeowner association wanted to get their board together, if, I'm just thinking, if the Civic Club wanted to have their executive committee be able to get together and just have a meeting. Did you all, right now, it would cost $100 to do that.
They're on the non-exempt list.
They're on the
Well, Civic Club is, but homeowner associations
Homeowners
aren't.
associations
Yeah.
aren't, they, Joyce?
They are too.
Yeah.
They are too? Okay. So,
Every community
non-exempt,
group
exempt.
that has been recognized in the Louisville area are on the non-exempt list.
That would be exempt list.
yeah.
Would it be the non-exempt or the exempt list?
Or the exempt, I may have said it wrong.
They don't, exempt doesn't
A
have to
big,
say.
long list.
Yeah.
So everybody on our exempt list actually doesn't pay these fees at all.
Right. Something's up.
Yeah. They do, are they responsible for a cleaning fee or anything?
Only.
Yeah, for damage, there's damage.
Oh, damage.
Okay, good.
But that's general for any of our facilities. If any of the nonprofit organizations use any of the facilities, and they mess it up, then we do collect the $200, but we've only had to do that once, since I've been here.
Right. Okay. Very good. Any other questions? Susan, Ryan, as representatives of the committee, thank you so much for your work on this. I know you guys have chewed on it a long time, and it looks like a pretty good sausage to me. Anything else, council members, on this? Very good. Okay. Stacy, you have an update for us on Louisville Tomorrow.
Yes,
Tonight.
I just wanted to remind you guys and whoever is watching that the next opportunity for public participation for our Louisville Tomorrow project, which is an update to our comprehensive plan and also an update to our master Parks and Rec plan. The date of that meeting will be August the 26th from 6:30 until 8:30 p.m. over at the Shallowford Square Pavilion. And it is kind of floating, drop-in style, so feel free to come by and stop by any time. You don't by any means have to come and at 6:30 and stay the entire time. You can feel free to drop by any time between 6:30 and 8:30 over at the square.
Yeah, that date, one more time, I'm sorry.
August the 26th from 6:30 to 8:30 at the square.
Mayor, if I might. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
If I might. Stacy, these look really great at talking about and giving that information. Are you putting these in restaurants and businesses around town?
Yes, we will be. And there's more back here. If you recall, I think a few of you were able to get some, but if you'd like some more, or there's some back on the table that we've put together for people to be able to pass out.
And do you advertise in other medias? What's the site, Journal, Clemens, Courier, et cetera?
They haven't been advertised in the Journal or anything like that, but we have put it on an event on Facebook, like we do all of our town events. It has been put on the website, and I think Jeannie sent out an email to all of the email distribution list for the newsletter, which reaches quite a few people. And then also we're going to do a Louisville Connect call closer to time of when it will happen. But we've got, I know board and committee members, especially planning board, I talked to them about trying to get it out to, their neighborhoods and neighbors and everything like that. Sent them some literature so they can help pass out and get the word out and stuff like that. So. And Channel 6. It's also on Channel 6.
Good job.
Any other questions? Thank you, Stacy. Hank, our activities at briefing.
Okay. Okay, we had one thing that we will report on. We amended the town meeting calendar for the beautification committee meeting schedule, and we removed meeting dates for the student leadership.
Very good. We're at the second opportunity. Should anybody wish to make a public comment, this is your opportunity again to share your thoughts with the council. Anybody wish to speak, please come forward. If not, move on to the next thing. Council members, comments?
I have a question for Mayor. So the school is opening.
School is open.
Yeah, are there activities that we as elected officials should be aware of in terms of open house or anything along those lines? I know
I don't
nothing.
know if they're having a community, I'll check with Dennis and see. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'll get an answer to that.
Thank you.
Anything else, council members? Ms. Franklin?
Yeah, this is COVID related. What are you guys thinking about as we go forward? And the only reason I'm saying that is we all know the numbers are escalating. Just in Forsyth County, the metric that the CDC uses, at work, we had to go back into mask last week. It actually happened on Tuesday instead of Monday. But the metrics at that time was about 135 to 140 per 100,000 folks here in Forsyth County. Don't remember the exact number because it's been a couple of weeks ago. But in tracking them last Thursday, when we were having our briefing, you asked me if I had any information at that time. And still with those same metrics, we were at about 170 per 100,000. And the latest metrics that we're now at 220 per 100,000. So the direction of this thing is obviously escalating. Now, where we reach a pinnacle and start to turn the corner and head back down toward 100, and once we drop down to 99 and get below 100, we're now in what they call substantial transmission. And to get out of that, you got to go down to 49 because that category runs from 50 to 99. So I know other local governments are making considerations. Some have gone back to Zoom meetings. I believe either the Guilford County Commissioners or the Greensboro City Council has actually gone back to Zoom. I know Guilford County has instituted indoor mask requirement. I don't know where we're going with all this stuff. But as we monitor the metrics, and this thing has continued to go in a bad direction right now, should we, as we roll forward, consider to go back to Zoom? And you know how much I was an advocate for us to be sitting right here. And I look at this stuff because I'm responsible for people in a work environment on a day in and day out basis and their interactions with each other. And I've got employees that are both vaccinated and unvaccinated. When we had our exemption period, if you will, the ones of us that did get vaccinated, I had about 5 weeks of enjoyment over the last 18 months at work. And then, of course, as these numbers have gone haywire, everybody, vaccinated or unvaccinated, is back to wearing a mask as an additional protection. So I just want to throw that out. I'd like for you guys to think about it as we go forward. If you have any comments, let's go through the mayor on this one. So it's a while, what you mentioned just a few minutes at the beginning of the meeting. We're at least 3 weeks now off for our next opportunity to get together. Let's monitor those metrics. I'm not sure at what point in time a trigger would need to be pulled, if you will, to go back to Zoom and properly advertise that and get that set back up. But please keep that on our radar screen as a town as we go forward, and let's try to do the right thing. I have no problem sitting here like we have come together tonight. But I feel like that we all need to be singing from the same sheet of music, okay? The path, true independence and freedom can only be achieved in doing which is right.
Hank, do we have any, do we anticipate any changes in indoor gathering size by the governor?
No, there hadn't been anything like that.
Okay. We may use that as our kind of catalyst.
And that's fine,
Yeah.
but that's coming.
The other thing too that you guys could consider is that when we first sat down, I had you all socially distanced in the circular pattern. That would be an option as well, is to modify the indoor space to be able to get separation between us and wear masks if necessary.
Well, and it's not just us. Obviously, we have boards and committees and the staff and.
Right, I understand that, and the only point is I'm trying to suggest that we're heading down a road, the metrics I follow, we're heading down a road that it's gonna be a while before we turn. We're gonna see worse before we see better. So we just need to be cognizant as we go forward, not only in our personal lives, but in what we try to do as a town and providing venues, if you will, for our citizens to come to and things of that nature, and try to make the right decisions at the right time. And that's my only point right there. It's going to get worse before it gets better.
It's a good point, Mr. Frankel. Thank you for the reminder.
Mayor,
Council members?
I have
Yes,
a
ma'am.
question for Hank. Is there regarding advertisement, when you change modality of meetings like that, is there anything that has to be done when you go from in-person to Zoom, or is that something that could take place within 24 hours?
No, I think you could do that. I think as long as you hit, at least 48 hours ahead of something, but to be able to let somebody know, that would have been the same length of time you could use to call a meeting, but I don't know that there's a requirement that you do a lot of that.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
And I would assume that our legislature hasn't changed the rules that would disallow a town to do this, since I believe, again, Greensboro has gone back to Zoom. But I know that
As long as the executive order is still in place.
Yeah,
it
okay.
Still is.
All right. I mean, there's a lot of things I'm not claiming to know. I just know that our numbers are going in the wrong direction.
Yes, they are.
Mayor?
Ms. Welch?
Yes, just wanted to say, as regards to health and safety, again, I was in Walgreens today, and the pharmacist there said, the flu shots are here. And I said, is it not too early? Will they not wane after a few months? She said, oh, no. She said it would be good. In fact, she said I would recommend it. Last year, they ran out. Now, I don't know if she was talking about the ones for older individuals, like Ken and me.
Well, you did include yourself, okay, I feel okay
Yeah,
about it.
I did.
Glad you skipped one. Yeah.
But, do look into that, and John and I got ours, and so it's not too early.
There's going to have to be a genetic change among those of us over 65. We're going to have 3 arms, one for the COVID, one for the shingles, and one for the flu. So we have to figure out how to make all that work. Council members, anything else? Well, very good. I'm sorry, Tom
Yeah,
Savage?
Fred has suggested that, we don't know what the trigger will be, but are we just simply gonna take it up when we meet next time and further discuss it, or what's our way forward on this thing?
I mean, I think we watch what the governor and he follows the CDC and what the state does.
And I think there's some merit to that, but Ken, all I can say is if we're at 220 now and next week we're at 440 and the week after that we're at 880, I don't think we have to wait on the governor to make a wise decision at a local level. I mean, if it's climbing exponentially.
Yeah.
But I believe that there would be action at a different level prior to that. I'm just going, I don't know when to pull that trigger. I'm not claiming to know that.
Yeah.
I just know what the trend is and where we're heading.
Yeah, our governor's been pretty cautious.
I think so.
But your point is well taken.
And a lot is going to be determined starting next week or so when schools get back into session. That's what's going to be a driving force. And we may not be impacted as much in Forsyth County as some of our neighboring counties.
Yeah. Council members, anything else? Well, I'd like to take a moment to recognize Serena Horner. And if you're watching Serena, I'm showing your birthday card. Serena organized a geocaching event. And for those of you that don't know what it is, please look it up because Serena has set up a geocaching course in Louisville. And I had a chance to go through it on Saturday. And it really is very cool. You have little rocks buried or little things buried at various historical markers, and you pull them up and you open them up and you pull out a little script and it tells you all about what it is, and you put it back in and you put in the rock again, and your GPS tells you how to get there. And it's a really, really neat concept. And what I learned is that there are people doing this all over the world. It's a big deal. But Serena was kind enough not only to host that event and put it together with her great family, but she had a birthday card for the town of Louisville and had everybody who participated in the event sign it. Happy birthday, Louisville, on your 30th. So, Sabrina, once again, thank you for demonstrating what an outstanding young woman you are, and your family for the support they give you and the things that you do for Louisville.
Well, it's a course and a course.
It's a course
And a course.
and a course.
Right. Because you're learning something and you have.
It's a course and a course. Thank you. With that, council members, will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion. Second.
Ms. Foster makes the motion and Ms. Welch gets the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That's unanimous. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight with us in the council chambers. And those of you who watched us on TV6 or on Facebook, we're glad you joined us. Hope to see you again soon. We're adjourned.